Today, we're finally going to be testing these LED lights. So we have a bit of a problem. A couple of years ago, we bought a used Ford Super Duty 350, and it's been a fantastic truck. But the headlights have kind of always sucked from the day that we bought the truck. Up here in the Pacific Northwest, in the wintertime especially, it gets super dark and we have deer everywhere and they seem to want to get killed. So we want to have the best lights possible. We did a kind of a weird test a couple of years ago with our Subaru. The headlights were also getting really fuzzy and the light was going everywhere, and we were at an auto parts store and they had an aftermarket housing, and instead of trying to do the polishing stuff or whatever everybody else does, we thought, you know what, let's just buy some affordable housings. We'll test them out. And Alyssa actually installed those headlights by herself in about a half an hour with one 10mm socket. And we didn't change the bulbs, we just changed the housings, and the beam of light is perfect and the lights are amazing. So I thought it's a great chance for us to improve the safety and enjoyability of driving our truck by putting better lights on. In the past, I might have just looked for a brighter bulb and hoped that we get more light, which we would, but the problem is that the housings are diffusing the light. The light's going everywhere instead of where we're looking going down the road. Just like the Subaru, we needed to look for a better housing and a better bulb. So this video, even though it's more about the bulbs themselves, we couldn't really just test bulbs in our existing housings. So we ended up purchasing 3 different housings with LED bulbs, and we'll kind of just see how it works out. It's pretty obvious, I guess, but it's worth saying that if you have good housings already, you may be able to just find LED bulbs that fit your car truck. In this situation, it's not going to work. One caveat, we are not car modification people, and I personally am not a fan of that stuff. When I was younger, yes, that was a lot of fun. But now we're really looking for something that just bolts on and works really good. So if you're the kind of person who wants to bake your headlights open and bolt on some sort of aftermarket projector or whatever, this video, it's not for you. Because we all have the same question, do you get what you pay for with these products? We decided to purchase a cheap product, middle of the road product, and an expensive product. We did this with the little LED pod lights and light bars a couple of years ago for our backhoe. And it was super enlightening what you get for $5 and what you get for $1,000. So this set of housings and bulb combination we purchased from a website called Pro Tuning Lab. They actually offered the housing with an LED upgrade. So this housings actually come with a halogen bulb installed, and we could install those and it probably would work fine. But like I said, we wanted the LED upgrade. So we purchased that package and it came to about $410. The middle of the road set of housings is made by a company called Anzo, and we purchased them through a retailer called Stage 3 Motorsports. So they make the housing, and these housings were $700. And then we ended up upgrading just the same as the other ones. These come with a halogen bulb already installed, and we could just put them in and they would probably be better, but we wanted to go with LEDs. So we purchased the package where they include bulbs for both the high beam and the low beam, and those bulbs added $125 each. So just the LED bulbs was $250, and then the housings were $700. And the big budget housings came from a company called Recon. The housings themselves were $850. And then the same thing, they come with a halogen bulb. We could put them in, they'd work. We wanted the LED upgrades. We purchased LEDs for the low beam and the high beam, and these were $200 and $250. So just the bulbs were $450 on top of the housing, bringing the total to almost $1,300. That's some serious money for hopefully some serious headlights. LED technology has come a long way in recent years. I think maybe 3 to 5 years ago, this stuff was very much grassroots. People were kind of just building their own stuff. I think it's to the point now where the average user should be able just to remove a headlight bulb and put a new headlight bulb in. In fact, you may be able to take it down to your local car parts store and have them do it. And we wanted to wait until this technology became reliable, because being like some of the early adopters with this stuff, the last thing you want is your headlights to go out as you're driving down the road. So let's take a quick look at the cheap housings first, and then we'll take a look at the cheap LED bulbs. So these housings, ironically, the cheap ones are the only ones that came with a protective film on the lens. All the other ones just came exposed. So if that's important to you, you might want to ask for better packaging, because I mean, scratching the lenses would suck, obviously. So this one has an over-under headlight design. The low beam is a projector, and I think that's really important for light quality. But a bad projector is still a bad headlight. So hopefully these projectors are good quality. And the high beam is a reflector. The blinker is still gonna be the factory halogen bulb, or incandescent bulb, I guess is what it is. This does have this kind of halo type running light. So that's gonna be an LED light around the headlight there. And then I think the marker light is actually an LED on the cheap headlights. So taking a look at the back, a couple things that jump out to me right away is the adjustability of the lights. So these are a very typical adjustment mechanism. You basically stick a Phillips screwdriver down through here, and this little toothed washer basically adjusts the headlight. But it looks to me like both of these only have up and down adjustments, and that's it. So no left and right. So no fine tuning your headlights. If they're aiming into the oncoming lane, even though they're adjusted up and down right, you're still gonna get flashed, right? Let's take these off and kind of look inside. So these caps have a little rubber boot, and I think, without getting too detailed, one of the weaknesses of aftermarket harnesses is water intrusion. It just kills them because they're not sealed well, and cars have a hard life. So this must be our low beam, and that's our projector housing. So that's pretty straightforward, and it looks like it's all wired into a harness that clicks to our factory headlight bulb. And then this appears to just be our high beam, which on this kit, we didn't mention it, but we didn't opt for a high beam because they didn't offer a high beam bulb for this headlight, although we could buy one, and that's pretty straightforward. So those go on pretty easy, but I can tell you that this whole headlight kind of just kind of feels chintzy. Looks like we plug our running lamp into that guy, and then must go in that hole, and then I think this is where our factory turn signal bulb ends up. All right, let's take a look at the cheap LED bulbs. So initial reactions, the bulb looks and feels like it's really high quality. It has an emitter on both sides, and it's got a nice rubber boot. And I think this is really going to be the deciding factor on some of these things, aside from light quality, is the heat sink. So this bulb has this fairly large heat sink in the back, and this is actually a little fan that runs to cool the bulb down. And wherever this technology is at right now, these bulbs still get pretty hot, and keeping them cool is important. It's got a good quality little harness, and that looks like it's fairly good quality. It should seal nicely. So the bulbs look like they're pretty high quality. It looks like these are a 25,000 lumen bulb, and the LEDs are actually a Cree LED, Cree brand LED. So one of the concerns that I had with this whole operation was the integration of the LEDs into non-LED housings. Anybody who's run into HID bulbs in the past, which were super popular, and good lights, but they have a separate ballast. And the ballast oftentimes was about yay big. It won't fit anywhere in the housing, so it's got to be mounted somewhere else in the engine bay. If I've lost you on this stuff, that's great. That means you're paying attention, and it's a big issue. So the LEDs are more compact, but yet they still are going to have probably the same problem. So I'm curious whether this is going to become an issue with these bulbs moving into a housing that was never designed to have an LED bulb installed. I think, speaking from experience here, instead of getting all the way to the install portion of this and finding out the thing doesn't work, let's do a bench install on each of these headlights to make sure they in fact work on the bench, and then when we get to installation, everything should go a lot smoother. Nope, doesn't fit. That was probably my biggest fear with this whole project, was that you order parts from company A and company B, and they assure you they work well together, and I turn out to be the guy who figures out they don't work well together. And there's nothing more irritating than buying a product only to find out it doesn't work. And the manufacturer should figure this stuff out. I mean, this shouldn't be happening on my bench. I mean, even though these are cheap headlights, they're outrageously expensive. So I guess if you're the company who makes this product, shame on you. Should have made sure this fit before you sent it to us. So with products like this, you end up just doing a hack job. You get out the drill bits and you start going nuts on it. We're not gonna do that. But I think we should install these headlights just temporarily, at least, so that we can give them a fair comparison against the other headlights. Who knows, maybe they're incredible. I mean, it's worth at least taking a look. But I think in order to make this work, we either need a different bulb or we've got to butcher the housing. And so if it doesn't fit on the truck and you butcher the housing, now you own housings that you can't use. So next is the middle of the road housings. These were just over $700. So they're a little different. They have a side-by-side headlight layout. The low beam, again, is a projector. The high beam is a reflector. And then they have these LED halos that actually arch underneath each of the headlights. And then I believe this is also a halo. I'm not really sure if it's a turn signal also, or if it's just a running lamp. And then they actually give you a new fitting for your turn signal, your factory turn signal. And this monster up here is the turn signal. And then on the side, they have your reflector, and then there's an LED running light behind that. I'm really perplexed at this adjustment system. It looks like there's one screw, and I guess the rest of it has me perplexed. Maybe you twist this or something to adjust that light, which makes no sense. So maybe we need to do some research and figure out how the heck you even adjust this thing. These have twist caps. These feel higher quality than the cheap ones. The caps are a much denser material, and they also have a rubber boot seal, and that seems to be of higher quality than the cheap housings also. So there's our low beam. Yeah. And our high beam. And then it looks like they actually include two completely different things that you use to plug in your running lamps there and your turn signal here. So they provide all that stuff. You don't use anything from your factory vehicle, at least that I see. Overall, I feel like the headlight feels a little bit higher quality, but the adjustment definitely has me kind of worried. And I don't really see where the vents are located on this one, so that's also a puzzle. Let's take a look at the low beams first. Ooh, that really sucks. And this is a ballast. This is kind of what I was concerned about. So you replace the bulb, great. But then you have to find somewhere to put this ballast, and this ballast is external. I imagine that's just because there's too much. Can't fit inside the housing. So this bulb also feels really high quality, nice. It's got dual emitters on both sides, and again, this monstrous heat sink, but there's no fan or moving parts or anything included, so I guess that means it's less prone to failure. And then there's a small connector which is unique to the ballast, and you would have to plug the ballast into the bulb, and a nice waterproof connector. So you've got this whole kind of setup here that represents the bulb. These ballasts oftentimes just provide really high voltage to whatever they're powering, and they're just important to get the LED going. The driver is sometimes what they call them instead of a ballast. And then we have the plug that would actually go into whatever your factory harness is. Of course, on this headlight, the factory harness is not an H7, so we'd plug this into the harness in the housing, which then plugs into our car. So this is an LED bulb, and this is an LED bulb, and this is the cheap one. Let's take a look at the high beams. Whoa. So that's an interesting way of dealing with the heat sink issue. These like aluminum finned things. Also a very solid feeling bulb, but doesn't have the monstrous heat sink that we saw on the other two. They've kind of come up with this solution. I'm wondering if there's even room in the housing for that. Another dual emitter, and it's got a 2-prong plug on there. Does that mean there's a ballast in here somewhere? Looks like the answer is yes. So what is this? So we've got a ballast, or a driver, I guess. Like the other ones, it connects to the bulb. So that's the same, high and low. and then that connects to wherever your factory bulb would install. And there's our high beam and our low beam. All right, place your bets. What do you think? Fit or not gonna fit? Done. How exactly do you recommend that I get my finger in there to put that on there? The heatsink completely blocks the locking mechanism. There's no way to get in there unless the heatsink's removable. All right, let's pretend I could find a tool to get my finger down in there or something to actually get the clip that holds the bulb in. That's all pretend because I can't. I don't think it's even worth trying to get that in there because I think we're gonna get defeated right here. Maybe not. No, that's not how that's designed to be installed, but that's how we're installing it. Well, it fits, but I guarantee you if the manufacturer of these bulbs sees this video, they're gonna lose it because that's not where you're supposed to mount the ballast, right? The ballast is not supposed to be inside the housing. It's probably gonna cook it, if nothing else. It is protected though. It's protected from the weather. So anything like this, you're gonna have to modify the housing. You're gonna have to drill holes, put in rubber boots and all this stuff. And this just to me reeks of aftermarket. It's like anybody can hack job a car. So you see these cars driving around that have all these like special lights on them. They're not very durable if you've noticed. And I think this is a classic case of a really nice LED hack jobbed into a headlight. So to be fair to the bulbs, these bulbs are not designed for this type of a housing. These are designed for a housing that has a rubber boot on the back, and this heat sink would actually protrude behind that. It would be exposed under the hood of your car, so it would be likely that it would collect dirt. And that's just an oversight on the part of the company that we bought this stuff from. For the record, each of these companies, when I placed my order, in the special comment section of the order form, I said, please make sure the bulbs fit the housings, because I don't want to waste my time with this garbage. And here we are. So if you think that spending this would be $1,000 on headlights, you're gonna have no problems. Not saying this is what's gonna happen to you, but it's very likely. To me, this stuff this is aftermarket, and this is the stuff that drives me nuts, and it's part of why we're doing this video, because I just had a hunch that if I spend all this money and I buy all this expensive stuff, something tells me it's not gonna work. On to the expensive headlights. These were $850 for the housings, and then combined $450 for the LED bulbs. So this housing has an over-under configuration, projector low beam on top and the high beam reflector on the bottom. It has a halo that I believe is a driving light, and it may also double as a blinker. No, so this clear lens down here, which is very, very small. If you remember, the cheap housing had a blinker that was this big, and this one, the blinker is minimized. And so then we have this halo that goes around the lenses, and then our side marker, and this is an LED. This is what I would have expected from the other housings for adjustment. So this is the projector low beam, and there's an up, down, and a left, right adjustment on both sides. So this projector is very adjustable, and then we have very similar adjustments here. It looks like this is up, down, and I can't tell if that's left, right, but I think it is. These are the vent tubes, which are of a quality that I would expect from this headlight so that it can breathe inside as pressure's built up. This one has the LED side markers, so we're actually gonna plug our factory harness into here and then attach it to that guy. And then we're using our factory turn signal on this one, and we'll plug that in at the bottom. They do use a rubber boot on here instead of using that hard plastic cap and then a seal. This is actually just kind of a rubberized cap that feels quality, the cap does. It doesn't feel like it's really thin or that it poorly fits. I feel like the seal is good. And then here is our low beam. What I like about this is that you can actually slide this wire down the cap. The other two, with that hard plastic cap, they have a little rubber boot inside, and if you pull on that, you'll pop the boot out of the cap, and now it's a nightmare to get it back in there. I guess I feel like this quality is probably closer to OEM. It just kind of has that feel about it. The lens feels a little bit thicker, if there's a comparison there, and everything kind of just looks more OEM-like, less aftermarket. Of course, I say that, and then in the notes for these housings, Recon says that on some headlights, I don't think this unit is one of those, that there are LED halos that go around the headlights or something that require you to splice into your factory lighting. So if you're just not into the modification scene, I would definitely research your products carefully. I'm pretty sure these are all plug and play, or they're supposed to be. So do your research so you don't end up with something that you have to modify unless you want to. Without even opening this box, something tells me there's a driver in here because the box is just so big. I sure hope not. So here's the bulb, and ironically this bulb actually looks like it's lower quality, even though it was more expensive than either of them combined. It does have the huge heat sink on the back, and then it's got a fan inside there, so it's got a moving part that can fail. It does have a dual emitter, and maybe I don't know if it's adjustable or not, but once again, we're back at a system that has a driver that will have to be attached to the bulb, and then we will need to find somewhere to stow the driver that then hooks to the bulb. So let's just say that right now I'm starting to get really irritated because this is 3 consecutive bulb and housing combinations that look to me like they're not gonna work. Now, I know that we can shove the driver in the housing. I'm pretty sure that's not how it's designed. It has a little screw mounting tab, which means it's probably meant to be attached somewhere. What's really odd is that this company actually emailed me. They responded to my order because I said, could you please make sure your stuff works before you send it? I don't have time to be your test monkey. And they said, oh, yeah. So you want this product and this product, not what you ordered, even though I ordered exactly what's on their website. So they did catch that, and they supposedly sent us the right products. But it looks to me like unless we just cowboy this, I don't see how it's gonna work long term. That is gonna fit in that hole. $1,299.85 with shipping, $13.15. We're sorry guys, we literally didn't expect this to be the outcome of this video. We dropped $3,000 on headlights, and I thought for sure maybe one of them would work. I think what really sucks, if you're the average working guy, is that not only did this stuff not work, I guess if you wanted a hack job, go ahead. We're gonna return all this stuff, and I guarantee you that 2 of the companies, if not 3, are gonna charge us a restocking fee. And what's ironic is the company that emailed me and said, yep, everything's good, they charge 20%. Their headlights were $1,300. They're gonna keep $260, and their product sucks. Not only do we not have better headlights, we're also gonna get ripped off. So I couldn't help myself. I was just morbidly curious to see if we actually tried to put just the bulb in there. Screw the ballast, the driver, will the bulb even fit on the expensive headlights? And when you try to put the rubber boot on there, it actually completely pushes against the back of the bulb. And if you remember, the back of the bulb has a fan in it, so that fan has been completely sealed off by the rubber boot on the back. It didn't feel right ending this video already. We just feel like you guys put all this time into watching this video. We put a lot of effort into making it. So even though we had all this stuff packaged up and we're ready to ship it back, we've decided to go ahead and test these LEDs. Even though none of them seem to fit in the housings properly, it's still worth throwing them in the truck really quick and just see what they look like. So we threw the stock headlights back in really quick just so we can kind of compare how bad these are and try to get some quantitative comparison about the other headlights. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's kind of a line here where the light is more intense below the line and it's less intense above the line. And one of the problems is all that light that's above the line is useless light. And that's one of the reasons that we need to change the housing. That's not necessarily a function of the LED bulb, but maybe you can understand why now we're not just changing the LED bulbs in our factory housing, so we're trying to also put in a better housing. You'll see in just a second how efficient, hopefully, these other housings are. And when you combine them with a brighter bulb, we should end up with like crazy good headlights. All right, so let's start with the cheapest headlights. This entire setup, including the housing and the LED bulb, was $400. I think the LED upgrade was like 100 something bucks. I can't remember at this point. The problem is the bulb doesn't fit inside the housing, so I've used really high-tech electrical tape to hold the cup on there. It's good enough to do a test. Wow. All right, let's see if they work. All right, turning the headlights on. So it's crazy, the halos on these lights are almost bright enough to be headlights in themselves. All right, there's our low beams. And let's go high beams, that's our halogens, and those are our LED low beams. I feel like they're dismally poor. Those don't look very bright at all. I mean, the ones I just took off there a second ago that were halogens, mind you, that were the higher end units, I took those off, were way brighter than that. So, I mean, they are misaimed a little bit. You can kind of see that there's one headlight right there, and here's the other headlight. I'm not sure if that's just an aiming issue, but I feel like they're not very bright. I'll just say that. Okay, there you go. There's cheap LEDs. So let's move on up. Next up is the middle of the road. These housings were 700 bucks, and then I think the bulb combinations came out to about $250 total. So ironically, I emailed this company with all my frustrations, and they responded back, oh yeah, just shove the driver inside, just do the thing, everybody does it. And I'm like, I don't think that's how it's designed, but okay, I'll throw you a bone. We'll do it. So I ended up having to take the heatsink off, do a bunch of tomfoolery, and I'm pretty sure that this little like fanned heatsink thing, that's not what you're supposed to do. But we'll do it for this test. So that's what I've done. I've shoehorned the drivers and all the cords and cables and connectors and everything inside the housing, and yeah, it fits. I just don't think it's gonna last very long because I think it's gonna melt. Anyway, so we're moving on to middle of the road LEDs. These are LED high beam and low beam. There's the running lights. So there's low beam, and there's LED high beam, LED low beam. Well, they're very poorly aimed, obviously, so that's not really that fair. I don't even have the housings really screwed in, so we're just kind of comparing for brightness, not so much for aiming and all that business. So you guys can see that the cutoff on these lights is way sharper, and that's the housing doing that, not the bulb. If we were to aim these headlights, I think they would be better, but trust me, I am not blown away right now by the brightness of these bulbs. If I was standing in front of the halogens, they're ridiculously bright. Honestly, I can look right into those headlights. So I don't know. That's middle of the road LEDs. There you go. And finally, the expensive ones. So these housings were $850. They charged us $200 for the LEDs. And ironically, this gangly mess, remember this? These aren't even LEDs, but that's what they sold us. And they were 250 bucks for the high beams. We're not even gonna bother putting all this rat's nest in there. It's not worth it. We're here to test LEDs. We did get the LED low beam shoved in there, but the dust cap won't go on because it blocks the fan on the back of the bulb. Who cares? We just wanna see if it's bright, right? So those are the running lights. Those are high beams. And there's the low beams. High beams, low beams. High beams, low beams. Holy smokes, that actually looks like a set of headlights. That's such a big difference. I mean, you can actually tell that they're on. That's one headlight, and I feel like that one headlight is brighter than the two combined headlights of the other ones. So there's one headlight. 2 headlights. Of course, they're not aimed very well. I think that pretty much speaks for itself. I'd say that's, if you could get them both together, that's pretty stinking good. I'd say that's probably as good as the LEDs or the halogens that were in there. Of course, we don't have LED high beams on these because the bulbs are not LEDs that they sent us. But I would say those are actually decent. Well, I would definitely say that doing the test was worth it, even though none of these obviously are going to work the way they're built right now, but it was very enlightening. I was really disappointed by the cheap headlights. Like, what a disappointment. And I can't tell you if it's the bulbs or the housing, but I'm just gonna blame it on the bulbs. I think that's fair. You know, I don't know what the halogen looked like in that housing, so hard to say. The middle of the road, I think it's pretty obvious that the low beams were pathetic. I mean, they weren't that great. I realized they weren't aimed super good. I don't think it's gonna make a huge difference. I could be wrong, but I'm just gonna go with meh, not that great. The high beams, on the other hand, were pretty nice. LED high beams, I think, are worth giving a look. I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but anyway, meh, not really feeling it, especially at what, $800 or $900 to $1,000. You're not getting $1,000 worth of value. We'll just leave it at that. All right, and finally, the expensive housings. So I did throw these housings on last night. We ran them with halogens. They were actually decent. They were better than what was in there from the factory. So we were just content. The housings, $850. Are they worth $850? No. No. I mean, we paid $200 for new housings for our Subaru. There's no way that's worth $850, but whatever. If you need headlights, you need headlights. The LEDs, not bad. I didn't drive around with them, but they were good enough in the driveway that I was like, okay, I think there might be something here. I think the unfortunate thing is that bulb is already really hot from the, 3 minutes that we tested it, which tells me that the fan on the back is super important, and blocking it with a rubber dust cover, probably not a very good idea. So I think there's something here. I think the light works good, and it puts out good light. It's good cutoff. The bulb seems plenty bright. So maybe with a little bit of work, or if you're okay with like just cutting and hacking, maybe you could make it work, but I'm not sure it's a good fit for us. But you better be willing to drop $1,300. Wait, never mind. Take out $250 of that because the high beams weren't even LEDs anyway. Overall, I'm still super disappointed in how this turned out. I feel like if you're spending a working man's money on this stuff, you expect and you deserve a lot better. So you LED light companies out there, get your act together. You got guys spending some serious money on your lights. The least you can do is make sure they work, they're reliable, and they do what they're supposed to do.